Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel. Today we're just doing a quick review and behind-the-scenes look at some of the equipment I use to film this channel. So right here is most of the Save It for Parts channel's technical filming equipment. We've got a couple old phones, some GoPros, some of these cheapo camcorder things, battery packs, chargers, USB cables. Okay, so that's not actually all my camera equipment. I do have some more stuff in here. I've got my regular camcorder. I've got an old clapboard. I've got my older still camera. I've got the drone. Got some more GoPro stuff. Tripod. I've got that old DJI Osmo. And then I've got this thing. This was another camera that I picked up at an auction, and I just want to do a quick comparison between this and my normal camera. When I started this channel, I was filming everything on a Google Pixel phone. That particular phone is smashed into 1,000 pieces after the drone Eagle incident, so this one's just a stand-in. But yeah, I learned that Google Pixel doesn't hold up to prolonged video use. I actually filmed so much with that thing that I burned out the video chip. I could not get it to take videos after that. I tried factory reset, I tried upgrading, I tried downgrading. It was just done for videos. It would still take photos, but videos just weren't happening on that phone. Still don't know why. Anyway, after that, I moved to this nice little Sony Handycam. And I picked this up at an auction. I've been extremely happy with it. I use this thing all the time, to the point of it's getting kind of damaged. There's dents, there's dings, there's scratches. Sometimes the little lens cover won't open all the way and I have to help it. Sometimes the zoom or focus gets stuck in there and I have to smack it a little bit. This thing has been extremely well used, and I am not nice to my equipment, as you've probably seen from this channel. So I can say that Sony Handycam takes abuse pretty well and for the most part keeps on working. Now, I also picked up this guy in an auction recently. So this is a Canon little camcorder, very similar. As you can see, the Canon on the left there is just slightly bigger, and it is slightly heavier. I'm going to switch over to one of these cameras now and film the other camera. I'll start by reviewing the Sony Handycam here, and we're filming this on the Canon camcorder. So this video clip is on the other camcorder, and then we'll switch back to this one. So anyway, this is a basic little Sony Handycam. It's the HDR-CX440. I really enjoy it. I like Sony's video equipment. I like Sony's photo equipment. I think they're a pretty good company. I like some of the features of this little camera. I wish it had a few more, but it works for probably 90% of my video use. Can quickly open the lens cap there. Like I said, if it works. There's a lot of sand and stuff in here, so I've abused that. And then you can see some other stuff I abused. I've started to break the tripod mount here. So to turn it on, you basically just open up the screen, flip open that lens cap, and you're ready to film. You've got your start-stop, your zoom. That's essentially your entire set of controls for this. So for general everyday video use, that's mostly all you need, but again, it is extremely basic. It's set up more for the casual user than a professional video person or team, so it does have some limitations for sure. The zoom on this is extremely good. You can actually get really close in on wildlife. I've done astronomy stuff with this. I've been really happy with the zoom. I've been pretty happy with the built-in image stabilization. It does still get choppy a few times, but it's definitely a little bit better than trying to film with a cell phone where your image is bouncing all over the place. As far as outputs, we've got the mini HDMI, we've got our expansion memory card. This does have a built-in flash memory, but it's very small, so to do more than a few minutes of video, you really need an expansion card. One issue I've noticed, I have filmed quite a bit with this, and I have corrupted a card before. I don't know if that was the camera's fault, I don't know if it was the card's fault. I just swapped it out to a different one, and I haven't had that issue since. Another potential issue with the Sony here is if it cuts out while filming, if I vibrate it too much and the battery jumps loose, or if the battery dies in the middle of recording, it claims to be able to recover that file, but it never does. So that particular video clip is gone forever if it loses power during the recording process. Speaking of power, one interesting thing with this, it comes with a single little battery, And I've actually held off on getting a replacement for this unit because no other Sony uses these batteries. I've invested in 4 or 5 of these little guys, and if I got another Sony Handycam, I'd have to buy all new batteries for it. But one thing that's cool is, originally this just comes with a single battery bank. This back here just has a cover on it when it comes from the factory. I don't know why. It's like they thought they were going to put in a bigger battery or extra battery capacity, and then they just decided not to. Well, you can just pry that cover off, and then you can put a second battery in there. It's not actually providing power, and it's in there just loose, but then you have that second battery ready to swap out when your first one dies. Battery life on this little guy is decent. If I'm filming continuously, I can probably get about half an hour of runtime out of it before I have to swap batteries. So it's not fantastic, it's not terrible. Again, it's designed for the casual user. Film your kid's birthday party, film your vacation. It's not really designed to make a movie or make a YouTube channel, but that's the theme of this channel. I use stuff in ways they're not intended to. I use discarded, secondhand stuff, and I make do with what I've got. So I've been pretty happy with the little Sony Handycam. Oh, another interesting feature, it has a USB cable built right into the strap, so you can just pop that out, plug it straight into a computer. You can also plug it in with the little multi-adapter. There was that phase in like the mid-2000s when everybody had to have their own weird proprietary multi-adapter to output USB and composite video and HDMI and a Java Latte and anything you possibly wanted, and you immediately lose that cable, and since nobody else makes that, it just becomes a useless port. Now that we've filmed that, and we've seen what the video quality looks like on the Canon camera here, let's switch over to filming with the Sony and go over the features of the Canon. Alright, so now you see the Sony video quality, and you might notice the Sony zooms out a little bit farther than this one. I have both of these on maximum wide zoom, and the Sony sees a lot more of the screen. In fact, it can see my knee over here. That's something I really like for filming in confined spaces like Sandland or my snow fort, small rooms. It's really nice to have both a super wide angle and a big zoom lens. Anyway, the Canon Vixia HF10 here actually has a lot more features. For example, you can put a gigantic battery on here. This one came with the unit, but it sticks way out past the back. You have a few more physical user interface controls on here, like the quick mode select, a few more hotkeys on the screen here, some other buttons on the inside. Now, this is slightly older than the other one, or at least designed to take the older style SD card rather than the mini. And of course there's the proprietary weird USB multi-connector that no one else uses. It's a little more complicated to use, including the startup sequence. It doesn't turn on just from opening the screen. You actually have to push the power button. And the zoom on this isn't quite as good as the Sony. However, it does have a threaded front end, so you can put filters on here. And if you're really missing that wide angle that the Sony provides, you can screw on external lenses like this wide angle or like a macro or other options. It also has a built-in flash or light here. It has a hot shoe or mini shoe up here where you can clip in bigger lights, microphones, other accessories. The Sony is missing that shoe altogether. Over here we have our HDMI and regular USB. This doesn't have its own built-in USB cable like the Sony, but it's got the pretty standard first generation mini USB there. Both of these cameras have a left and right stereo input microphone. The Sony, unfortunately, has no option for an external microphone. So if there's wind, if there's any background noise, you're going to hear it on my videos when I'm filming with the Sony. I cannot put any one of those fuzzy microphones on it. This little guy does have outputs for a microphone, so you can put an external mic on this guy. So overall, the Canon has a lot more professional features. It has a lot more accessories you can hook up to it. The base features aren't as good, like the zoom isn't as good, the wide angle isn't as good, the controls aren't as intuitive, the weight is much heavier, but it's much more expandable than the Sony. Alright, let's do a quick side-by-side comparison of both cameras. Alright, let's do a quick side-by-side comparison of both cameras. I'll zoom in a little bit on the Sony just so we're seeing the same amount of cat in each frame. Now we're doing the full zoom test. This is each camera zoomed all the way in. And again, you'll notice that the Sony can get a lot closer to distant objects than the Canon. Alright, so how about a lower light environment? It's not exactly dark, but I have all the lights turned off and the curtains drawn in this room, so we're definitely challenging both cameras here to see what they can see without a lot of extra light. I'm noticing right away that the Sony seems to be doing better than the Canon, at least in terms of scene brightness and pixelization and static visible on the preview screen. As I've mentioned before, the Canon is much less convenient and much less user-friendly than the Sony. This extends not only to filming, but also in getting the footage off the camera. If you want to connect this thing via USB, you also have to connect the power supply, because apparently it can't power itself over USB, or it just doesn't trust its own internal battery to stay operating during the file transfer process. So with the Canon, you have twice as many cables and twice as much hassle to get your footage off. The Canon also gives you this confusing file structure, which, yeah, who knows where your files actually are in here. You have to cruise around and search until you find the actual videos. Now, the Sony also has some little annoyances when it comes to getting your files off. There are two video recording formats. There's AVC HD, and then there's this XAVC, which is much higher quality, but records in a different format with different file naming structure. So if you use AVC HD, you get nice standard file formats that are named with the date and time the file was taken, which is perfect for archiving, for sorting your files. Very convenient. This one seems to be a little more experimental, and it just names your files C01, C02, etc. Really inconvenient if you're shooting on multiple days, if you're switching memory cards, and then you have to go back and try to sort your files out. You're going to have duplicate names, you're going to have overlapping files. Much better quality on this XAVC, much less convenient to use the files. Okay, it seems this video has gone from a short behind-the-scenes look to a full-on review of two cameras. It's running a little bit longer than I originally intended. In conclusion, I would say I really prefer the Sony Handycam better than the Canon. While the Canon has a lot more physical features, it's just a little less convenient to use. It doesn't have the zoom range that the Sony does. I think the video on the Canon looks a little bit worse. Theoretically, the sensors and resolution on the Canon are supposed to be a little bit better than the Sony, even though the Canon is a few years older. But in real life use, I actually prefer the look of the video from the Sony. I also have to admit, I like how easy to use the Sony is. When it comes to filming, when it comes to getting the files off of it, it just blows away the Canon for user-friendliness. Now, I'm definitely going to keep the Canon camera. That Sony camera is maybe on the way out because I beat it up, I abuse it, I use it way too hard. So one of these days it's just going to die, and I'm going to have to switch back over to the Canon and use that as my backup. Or maybe I'll have to get another camera. At this point, I'm leaning towards getting another Sony. I like their video quality, I like their features, and I've had a really good experience with that one so far. Hopefully this has been a useful video for people out there. Neither of these cameras are really sold new anymore, but if you're looking into the used camera market, maybe this is a decent review for a couple of the options that are out there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.